I'm going to go ahead with the meeting beginning ritual.
起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬、再鞠躬、三鞠躬，参加各位点传世一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated.
Well, hello everyone. It's wonderful to be able to speak with you all again today. You know, it's funny, in preparing this presentation this morning, one of the things that I was thinking about was actually what Bill had shared in the past about at one point aspiring to be a Baptist minister. It is funny that he brought that up in his talk today, because I was actually thinking about it, and I'll maybe when the point of the presentation comes, I'll expand on that a little bit. But it's just a funny coincidence to me that he brought that up. So today, my talk is on emptiness, day 16, and the subtitle for this I've chosen is Limitless Potential. And I guess in a way, you might say that that's quite a claim to say that limitless potential, to use the word limitless, and you know, without boundary. It seems like a strong claim to make, and I guess it's funny to me. The only thing that can really achieve that to me is the Tao, the great Tao, that force that is constantly empty in a sense, and never can be never gets full up to the point where it can't accept more. It truly is limitless, and in a sense, that's what I want to try to get into today, if I can. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into it here. So I wanted to start by reading chapter 11 of the Tao Te Ching in full. 30 spokes join in one hub. In its emptiness, there is the function of a vehicle. Mix clay to create a container. In its emptiness, there is the function of a container. Cut open doors and windows to create a room. In its emptiness, there is the function of a room. Therefore, that which exists is used to create benefit. That which is empty is used to create functionality. And I think this is such a basic axiom. It's true. I think in many ways most people don't think about it. But it really is true. The function of everything is in its emptiness, really. And, you know, when we talk about physical emptiness, and just to take a pictorial example, an allusion to the chapter I just read, the empty cup, you know, its potential, of course, is what it can hold. Its function is in its emptiness. If it's full, then it can't be used. In a sense, it can't be used to hold that liquid. And, you know, in a sense, it's funny because when you think of physical emptiness, one wonders, is physical emptiness, and maybe another way to say that is nothingness. Is emptiness a state of nothingness? And my answer to that is, well, in a way it's not, because essentially what emptiness is it contains all of the potential that hasn't been realized, but it's there. And Derek has written actually quite a lot on the subject of emptiness. There are, in his book, The Tao of Daily Life, he devotes a chapter to it where he talks about a seedling and how a seed, you know, contains the potential of a tree. And yet it's not limited to that alone. Not only is it the potential of that tree, but every possible descendant of that tree. And that, of course, is with the forward way of looking at it. But he also points out you could look backwards and say that seed came from a tree, that came from a seed, that someone could have held in their hands at one point. And then within that, everything from the past tracks back as well. And it's that magnificent limitlessness of that idea, both as you go forward through time and even as you look backwards. There's sort of this infinity that happens. And I think about it in terms of science. It really is there in a way. When we look at the universe, our current cosmology says that it's expanding. Not only is it expanding, but the universe is actually accelerating in its expansion. And then, of course, too, at the very small, right? It seems to be you have infinity at both the very small and the very big, which is such an incredible concept. And, of course, all of that manifests from the great Tao. And the reason why, when I was putting this together, I thought of Bill, and because he's told the story he told this morning before about, his having been raised in a obviously somewhat fundamentalist Christian tradition, that he always felt like it didn't quite make sense because he could never live up to it. And I started thinking about how grateful I am that I, like Bill, like Derek, found the Tao and was able to make it a part of my life because of this difference that Bill alluded to. And the difference to me, and I'll try my best to state it the best I can here, is that and just to take Christianity as an example. So there's this idea of original sin. And whenever I think of the concept of original sin, I always think of the late, great Christopher Hitchens, who was quite a vocal, I'm going to use the word, I guess it's fair to say, militant atheist. And what he would often say when he would sort of allude to this original sin idea is, or his criticism of Christianity would be that, the idea is that you're born sick and commanded to be well. And I think kind of that's what Bill was saying this morning, is that just doesn't make sense fundamentally. And I, of course, agree. And to me, what I love about the Tao is that it's not that way. It's a different take. The idea being that you're born your true self. You've always had everything you need within you to reach your full potential. Your limitless self is there within you. You're born with it. You're born with everything you need to achieve it. And it's almost like if I were to take Christopher Hitchens' phrase and apply it to Taoism, it would almost be something like, you're born as your true self, and you command yourself to realize that potential. And also, too, you are free to inject the meaning that you want. That's the great freeing thing about the Tao, is there is no external force that requires you to give your life over to it who's going to rescue you or push you in the path or open doors for it or whatever. The idea is really that you do that yourself. You've already been given, by the virtue of the fact that you find yourself in this form, everything you need, and that it's in walking the path that we achieve it. And so I hope I've made the contrast well. I probably could have stated it better. But to me, that's one of the wonderful things about the Tao, is that idea that it is so powerful in the sense that you have the power to govern and control your own life, and that you're not lacking anything, that the limitless self is within you. And it's just a matter of focusing on it and aligning yourself with it to bring it to its fruition. And so this next quote from chapter 4, this is just an excerpt, not the full chapter. The Tao is empty. When utilized, it is not filled up. So deep, it seems to be the source of all things. And of course, that is, as Bill said, is a matter of faith. I mean, no one, Bill rightly said, no one can tell you what happens when we die. And anyone who tries to tell you that with confidence, it would probably be wise to be leery of them. What you can say is what you believe. But that is, of course, as Bill said, it is a matter of faith. So do I really believe in limitless potential? Well, yeah, I do. I suppose in the sense that I believe the Tao is the source of all things, the very nothing itself, the very emptiness itself that gave rise to everything and that can't be filled up, that sustains everything, that always has sustained everything, and that will sustain everything forever. And well beyond even the things we can grasp in our limited ways. So it is limitless potential that makes the Tao so appealing. The idea that everything you need is within you, and that it's just a matter of aligning yourself with those teachings and committing to doing your best to cultivate sincerely. And yeah, we're not always successful at that. Like Bill said, sometimes we end up on the side path. I think the funny thing is I think what happens is that though I'm sure Bill has said that as he goes astray sometimes, and I'm sure we all do from time to time. But I guess the difference is it's like we know we've gone astray, and there's a strong desire to come back to that wide and easy path because it is easy. It is better. That path is so much more fulfilling and happy to walk than those side paths, especially once you deviate too far and you're in the thick of it, so to speak. And then, of course, it always is good to have someone who can sort of point to the path and go, hey, it's back here. And I just want to say, for me, Bill and Derek and Ed have been those people, those teachers who just quietly have pointed to the path. Or maybe not quietly isn't a good word, because obviously they take the time to take action to share their insights. And how often, probably without them even knowing it, how often they've been so helpful and reminding me to come back to the path, and how grateful I am for that help. So I wanted to talk briefly about something, because this talk is about limitless potential. So I wanted to talk about Yiguan Tao a little bit, and the Yiguan Tao shrine itself, or Yiguan Tao shrines. Maybe I should use the plural. And the reason why I put Derek's translation up here to the cover is because there's something about this cover that I always liked, and then of course is the fact that on the cover is an actual moonlight, which is roughly translated as it could be translated as the Buddha light. And what you see there on that round circle behind that flame are the Chinese characters for Wu Ji, which means without boundary or unbounded. So another way, that's a sort of a synonym for limitless. And of course, the light reflecting through those characters, it sort of represents how the Tao basically reflects upon, form itself, the form that we find ourselves in, giving us that ability, that possibility of reaching that limitless potential that we all have and that we all want to realize to the best of our abilities. And so I wanted to bring that up, and I also too wanted to invite you to, Bill has spoken, and Derek both have spoken in much detail about this, and Bill, of course, as a shrine owner, has a lot of insight on that. And there are of course, recordings on our YouTube channel where Bill and Derek both talk about it in much more detail. But I wanted to bring it up because of the idea. I wanted to bring up the idea of Wuji without boundary or unbounded as it relates to emptiness. That emptiness, of course, is where all the potential is. And so it's funny too. I just want to talk about also too an interesting difference on emptiness. Sometimes in the West, in particular, emptiness can have a negative connotation. We often think you'll hear someone say, their life became empty of happiness, as an example, or emptiness is somehow aligned somehow with want or lacking, and very different from the Eastern take on that, I think. In a sense, emptiness is something to be embraced. It's almost to think of it like a blank canvas in which we've been given to sort of paint our lives. And the size of the canvas is unlimited in a sense. You can make the painting as big as you want. Alluding to the limitlessness of it and the power of choice in it. And it is funny, that the Tao literally, in its way, it speaks to us all. And I honestly think it's been speaking to me for years. I mean, Bill talked about his experience back when he was 14 and so forth. And for me, I think in similar ways, it's always been there. I haven't always known to pay attention or to recognize the patterns that are before me. Sometimes I've been fortunate enough to even recognize them in retrospect, maybe. And then sometimes been able to see them maybe in real time or close to real time, to see those patterns, see how they're working in my life. And what a great good fortune it is to have these teachings in my life. And how grateful I am that I found Taoism and studied it for so long and was interested in it and made my way to the temple. And because basically the first time I ever heard Bill speak was I was physically at the temple, because I don't think I attended any meetings prior to it. I think I just read on the site all the information and then showed up. And so the first time I ever heard Bill speak, I was at the temple itself. And, when I think of all the benefit of, that chance meeting. I mean, what are the chances that Bill and Derek could meet up all those some 20 years ago, and that, roughly 10 years after that meeting, I'd be part of that by being able to sit at the temple and listen to them speak, and how much their teachings and their insights have helped me over the years, so that I have a chance to become my best self. And the funny thing too, the other thing that I thought about two things in preparing this presentation on emptiness and about how really we're born as our true selves. We're there with everything we need. The other thing I thought of, besides Bill's story of his aspirations of becoming a Baptist minister, the other thing I thought of was the night my daughter was born, and it had culminated in the happy joy of her being born into the world. And of course, Wendy was physically exhausted and was resting, as she well deserved. And I was somewhat physically exhausted as well. But Ellie had different plans, because every time I went to go lay down, she would sort of cry or stir. So I finally just gave up and just walked over and picked her up, and I held her in my arms in a chair, even though I was on the verge of exhaustion, and just looked at that little face and held it. And it was in that moment that I thought of her potential. This newly arrived soul, fresh from the Tao itself, in a way. fresh from the spiritual world, I guess I should say. And that, of course, is a matter of belief. And that everything that she has to bring to the world is there. Everything she needs is there. And how my responsibility really is just to do my best to point to that path. And, you know, sometimes I'm sure I'll be able to walk it with her, and other times she may be off in the side paths, and, you know, that's part of life. So, you know, there's a lot to be learned in the failure sometimes of those side paths. And what I'll try to do my best is what Derek and Bill and Ed do for me, which is just silently point to the path through really the fulfilling of their destinies, really. Which gives me the hope of being able to realize mine. So I want to start to sum it up now, if I can. So it is the emptiness of an object that creates its function. This is pointed out in Chapter 11 of the Tao Te Ching with specific examples like a wheel, a cup, and a room. And it's true when you think about it. It's that emptiness that allows the creative process within us. And that's, of course, the Tao within us, that limitless potential. In the West, the idea of emptiness can often have a negative connotation. We speak of life, the life of empty of happiness and so forth, or emptiness used in a negative way. But it is in that emptiness that you have the power to fill your life with all the happiness you can imagine. It really is a change in perspective, often, in how you look at things. You know, I love the story that Derek's told before, and I think it's actually in the Tao of Success. I think it's one of the first stories where someone hits on this idea of, you know, everything is devoid of meaning and everything is meaningless, and you know, a wise person says, well, yes, I agree. But why do you suppose it's that way? And the person says, well, why ask why? That's meaningless too. And of course, the point is that it's that way so that we're free to inject the meaning we want to inject into it. And what a powerful freedom that is. And often all that takes is just a little change in how you're thinking about it. So emptiness, in a sense, is about a return to simplicity itself, decluttering not only the physical space of our surroundings, but our minds too. I think, you know, when we talk about detachment and making life simple, and Derek spoke at this at length last week, actually, made very great points about it. It is sort of about, it's not about what you take away, really, it's what you add by taking away. And that really is the concept of emptiness that I think is key. It's what you gain from the nothingness. So it is in tapping into that limitless potential offered by the Tao, which is the ultimate source of everything, that we can reach our full potential. Because the Tao has no limits, our alignment with it can allow us to reach the potential we are all destined to reach. And I always like to say that there should be a sense of urgency about it, in the sense that, as I said last week, on my talk on transient life, it's like we can't take anything for granted. We don't know how long we're going to be here. In this current manifestation anyways. And so really we should make the most of it. And it's not a matter of if to me, and this is a matter of faith, I admit, but it's when. And the choice is ours as to when we are going to step onto that wide path, that wide and easy path, and fulfill what we're meant to do. So emptiness contains the unlimited potential of the great Tao itself. Our truth selves have always been there, with everything needed to meet our unlimited potential. And so I hope I've ended this talk with great hope for our potentials and our hopeful realization of those potentials. And my faith is that we all will get there one day. If not this lifetime, then likely as a matter of faith, perhaps the next one or the one after that. So I want to end with the book recommendation, The Tao of Joy Every Day, a great book to use daily to help one study and learn the Tao teachings and put them into action. Okay, so there it was, Emptiness, Day 16, Limitless Potential. Thank you all so much for allowing me to share with you today. I hope I said something that was of use, and I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.
Alex, thank you for a wonderful presentation. I want to kind of share a little bit of my experience on people wanting to take the side paths. So first of all, I think, sometimes I ask myself this question: what is the attraction of the side paths? Why do people constantly flock to them? And my conclusion over the years, after some observation, is that the side paths may not lead to where you want to go, but that's not apparent at first glance. The side paths seem to offer, what the plain and wide road of the Tao does not. And what is that? Well, it's excitement, adventure, and drama. Indeed, when you embark on a side path, your life is full of interesting challenges, but it may not be the fun adventure that you had in mind. The drama that you get from the side paths may actually be the kind that wears you down, that stresses you out, that exhausts your reserves. So, at a certain point, you may be saying to yourself, after some time on the side paths, well, I've had enough of this. I'm going to go back to, slow and steady wins the race, not this promise of instant results or fast results, etc. So, by that time, other people who have stayed on the path of the Tao, maybe miles ahead already because they weren't distracted by the side paths. And that's the reason why sages, Tao cultivators, tend to warn against people exploring the side paths. Although I think, for many of us, until we have actually seen it for ourselves, the danger of the side paths is not quite real until we have actually seen it with our own eyes.
Let's go ahead and do the meeting ending ritual, everybody. 起立，面向佛堂，持架深鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，持架各位顶传十一鞠躬，斜班一鞠躬。Well done, everybody. Thank you so much.